Oh, it's another day after a Broncos loss. Good day, everybody. It's Orange and Blue today. It's Cecil, Lammey, it's Andrew Mason. We're going to try to be positive through this, Mace. We're going to try to get through all this stuff because if this Broncos team, now 2-5, had only scored 18 points a game on average, they'd be 6-1. So let's get through the Jets game quickly, and then let's look ahead, as we will all week, to the London game. But your thoughts just overall after another loss, this time to the Jets.
Who's this we being positive? It might be you. I'm there's
Are you
there's
done?
not
You went on this rant on Twitter last night with all these not expletives, but like adjectives, right?
yes, it's brutal. I think I share the frustration of a great swath of the fan base, at least represented by the fans that got up with a minute and 54 seconds left. Broncos still having 3 timeouts, easily capable of getting the ball back for one last chance to tie the game, and saying, "Nope, we're done. We're done." I think I think people had seen enough. I think, and then the more I dive into this game, the more when I rewatch it, but then the more I go through the data from it, the more frustrated I get, and the more I think that this is not going to be something where you wave a magic wand and it's going to be fixed quickly.
Yeah, there's so many problems, and that's the thing. It's almost what do they call it? Like sensory overload, right? When you watch this Broncos team and you break down the coaches tape, and you're just like, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. Again, we've always talked about the offensive line and just the troubles they're in, but the play design, the structure of the plays, the calling of the plays, the order of the plays, like there's just so many things wrong, Mace. That's where it can be overwhelming and very, very frustrating.
Yeah, and you've got it's schematic issues, it's play calling issues, it's personnel issues. I mean, this is not a one or the other thing. This is or one, is it one of 3 possibilities? This is truly a bit of everything, especially on the offensive side. And what we're seeing is, they're wasting a brilliant defense, but a brilliant defense that is starting to take on some water in terms of personnel. We'll get into it in a little bit. Baron Browning is going to miss the next few weeks with a hip issue. Randy Gregory is already on the shelf on IR. They're expecting him back at some point in November. Bradley Chubb is clearly on the trade block at this point. At 2-5, I think you have to be sellers rather than buyers. Right. And some of the personnel issues that we talk about, you're going to need some draft capital to fix them, or you're going to need cap space to go after them in free agency. And so more and more you put everything together as far as where this franchise stands. It's not whether they can afford to trade Bradley Chubb. Maybe it's whether they can afford not to. But then that leaves you compromised in the short term at edge rusher until you get Baron Browning back. But you can't think short term. I think you got to think over the horizon here.
You got to think over the horizon and just know that, with all the people that were saying it's Russell Wilson's fault, they were pretty quiet on Sunday because Brett Rippon came in and didn't look any better. And again, Brett Rippon is limited. Brett Rippon's a number 3 quarterback, in my opinion. He's got limited arm talent, super, super smart. But as I wrote in one of my pieces, whether it was Mile High Monday or my 3 observations after the game, like if your system is so complicated that a 10-year veteran looks poor in it, and that a super smart future head coach, probably in Brett Rippon, can't make sense of it, like maybe you should change some things. But today, Nathaniel Hackett at his press conference said, what do you say? We're on the right track, or like, I think we're doing a good job. He said something so incredulous, I almost smashed my computer.
Yeah, let me find the exact quote here because I don't want to misquote. He said it's, quote, going really well, unquote.
Oh my God.
Talking about the operation. He said, like, he said, quote, right now in our short week, we're going to keep it status quo. We're all going to work together to build a great plan. I feel like our operation has been going really well. We held the ball for a long time. We moved the ball. We just didn't convert some third downs. That kind of stalled us. But we're going to keep going how we are, and I think that we'll evaluate everything. We always do. You're evaluating everything, but you're saying that if you're evaluating everything and you're saying the operation is going really well, you're not evaluating everything.
Right. I think the first and most important part of scouting or coaching is self-scouting and self-coaching and knowing, where your weaknesses are and admitting that. I think admitting your weakness, and that's a strength. That's not a weakness to be like, I need help. But
Yeah.
clearly Nathaniel Hackett does need help. And well, it doesn't sound like that's something maybe on his menu of things. And the whole Justin Otten thing, like he hasn't started his car in 10 days and he doesn't see his family. And that's not working, dude. I think you wrote about it at denverfan.com, right? About Justin Otten. It's like, dude, this isn't this whole like, because you and I both know people that like they're always at work, but they don't do a lot of work. And I'm not saying that Justin Otten's not doing any work, but clearly this whole like I'm sleeping at the building and I'm never leaving, like that's not working. Go home, see your family, like get in the right headspace, because it's all off.
Yeah, and you know what? Whether it happened last weekend after that infamous quote, or whether it happens over the course of the bye week, getting away, getting home, spending time with family, getting a little bit of distance between yourself and work. It will refresh the mind and it will refresh the spirit. B, it might just give you something in the matter of perspective that can help you. A little bit of distance, emotional and physical, can be of great benefit when things are clearly going askew, as they are with the Broncos right now. And a little bit of mental rest. Clearly, the plowing on through, working harder. You're going to keep working, keep grinding, keep adding hours. It's clearly not helping here, right? I mean, so you have to try something different, because right now it's not getting any of the results, and it's the same stuff week after week. I mean, I think we got the one thing we probably did get the answer on yesterday was is it what role does Russell Wilson have? It's not that he's not culpable in this, but there are things beyond him that are going askew. Like you said, Brett Rippon isn't a great quarterback. I mean, I heard, I think it was Mike Kliss say he's a good number 2. No, he's
no. Nick Foles is a good number 2.
Yeah. Case Keenum is a really good number 2, right?
Right.
Yeah, he's in the bottom tier of number 2s. I mean, this is kind of like where you were when you had Jeff Driscoll a couple of years ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
That you have a guy who's not number 2. I mean, Drew Lock last year was probably at best a mid-tier number 2.
Right.
And no matter what decisions the Broncos make in the offseason, I think one of them should probably be you need something a little bit better in terms of the backup quarterback, especially now we are talking about Russell Wilson, and it's going to be built around Russell Wilson for the next couple of years. Like it or not, you are tethered to him. Your best chance is to make the most of who he is and get this right. But he had the finger injury last year. He's got a partially torn hamstring this year and the lat muscle injury. You need to have a good backup plan going forward, better than the one that you had this weekend.
Yeah, you need a better backup plan, especially if you're, I don't even want to say playoff hopes next year. But if that's your mindset, you don't have playoff hopes with Brett Rippon as your backup. Like that doesn't compute. Nice guy. I hesitate making fun of him, and not even making fun, just telling the truth, Mace, because he's going to be a head coach someday, and I don't need another head coach pissed off at me. But yeah, Brett Rippon, you're fine. You're like, okay, but I like you as a number 3, not as a number 2, and certainly as a starter, as we said on the show. Like Brett Rippon start for a couple games, that's fine. You get at a certain point, everyone's going to figure him out. Didn't take long for the Jets to figure him out. I guess he likes Jerry Jeudy, right? Like
Jerry Jeudy might like him.
Yeah, exactly.
Really like him because 2 of his better games in his career have come with Brett Rippon at the controls, right? I think 2 of Jerry Judy's 4 longest plays as a pro came with Brett Rippon throwing him the football. Clearly, they're on the same page,
right?
And that was a positive thing. He did take the short stuff from time to time that Russell Wilson didn't last Monday. That was a positive thing, but at the same time, they were kind of the same mistakes. I mean, let's look at that 4th and 10, for instance. And some of this is also probably philosophical in terms of what the Broncos are trying to do, because there is clearly an issue here of trying to get all of it at once when you just need to get a bit. You go on 4th and 3. You don't need to throw up a prayer and hope for a PI call Which, by the way, on that, there was PI on Sauce Gardner. He did yank Cortland Sutton's collar, but there was some serious hand fighting. You could have gotten Sutton for illegal contact as well. My thing would have been illegal contact, DPI, offsetting, replay the down. But why are you trying that there? Why are you testing Sauce Gardner there when you need 3 yards? And then on the subsequent 4th and 10, why are you throwing up the prayer to KJ Hamler with 2 defenders when you've got Greg Dulcich wide open there about 6-7 yards downfield? You get him the ball, he's going to get 4 yards after the catch. You're going to move the sticks and give yourself a fresh set of downs and a chance to keep it alive. Phyllis, so some of it's on the quarterback, some of it is on the philosophy here. The same philosophy that causes you to try to jam one into Tyreek Cleveland on 3rd and 4 when all you need is the most you need is a first down to end the game. That's where it comes from the top down on the sideline.
Yeah, and like you said, jam it into Tyree Cleveland. No offense to Tyree, good special teams player, but you're jamming it into like your 5th receiver. Hey, let's design that play. It almost reminds me, ironically, of Super Bowl 49 going to Ricardo Lockett. Like Ricardo Lockett, he's my Facebook friend, but like Ricardo Lockett's like 150 pounds, right? You never throw that throw to Ricardo Lockett. And they had, who was the big dude? He just had like the one Super Bowl. He had the one, it wasn't Chris Moore. David Moore, right? Remember, he had like one game in 49, and he's 6'5", whatever he is, and you're right there. If you are going to throw and not give it to Marshawn Lynch, why not throw it up to that big man and not the little skinny guy, Ricardo Lockett? It's just like the Tyree Cleveland thing, but clearly
Chris Matthews.
Chris Matthews, thank you.
Yeah, Chris Matthews had the game of his life in Super Bowl 49.
He's like little Timmy Smith, right? Minus the cocaine addiction or whatever. I hope he's okay. Is he still alive? Like, I don't. The show has turned to a dark matter, but
it has.
It might be out of jail now. I'm not sure, but
Timmy Smith's still with us. Timmy Smith's still with us. I don't know that. I don't know that he's out of prison yet, but let's see here.
That's Super Bowl.
We're gonna look him up now.
Greatest.
Oh no, he is.
Game.
He's been out of prison for a while. Yeah, actually, he wasn't in prison for that long, but he was. You know where he got arrested, right?
Where?
Denver, right here.
Right here
in 2005. In 2005, arrested for trying to sell cocaine to an undercover cop.
That's bad, right?
Traditionally, that's bad. Yes.
Yeah. The quote you'll only hear on Orange and Blue Day. He wasn't in prison that long.
He had a cup of coffee.
A short stint in prison. Anyway, so it's like, why are we going there? Why are we doing this? Why is Nathaniel Hackett? And again, the thing is like, all right, I said the thing, the 18 points a game, they'd be 6-1. Woo! That means they're close. No, it means the coaching isn't getting them over the top. And then in football, it's unforgivable, Mace. You've covered this game long enough. It's unforgivable to keep making the same flipping mistake. If you're Nathaniel Hackett, you are committing the ultimate sin in the NFL. Yeah,
I mean, when you're a coach, a player makes the same mistake multiple times, and they move on from that player, right? Yeah, They're like, okay, you're not getting it. Get another guy, as Mike Shanahan would say. Got to get another guy, right? I mean, but if the coach is making the same mistake, at what point do you say we got to get another guy? And I think we're closer to that now than at any point before this. I think now I think we're talking about a realistic possibility that there is a coaching change in the coming weeks if this thing doesn't get turned around. I mean, I could even see a scenario, Cecil, where if it's really bad on Sunday, they make a change during the bye.
Yeah, I could see that as well. And a couple of weeks ago, even through the doldrums, we were like, nah, probably not this year. And, they could swing it around and after the bye. And this is the easy part of their schedule. They're 2-5, dude.
Yeah.
This is the part of the schedule where we're like, this is going to be a nice start. You build momentum, and then you got that murderer's row after your bye. Like,
I mean, what are the chances? Yeah, with what's left on the schedule now, the next 4 games here, 3 of them are against 2-win teams: the Jaguars, then your bye, And after the Titans, which looks, by the way, it looks really tough because for a lot of reasons, not the least of which is the Titans are that team that just they wait for you to make a mistake and they pounce. And what does this Broncos team do a lot of is make mistakes, right? Can you imagine? Look, I mean, I don't mean to get into coaching thing, but can you imagine what this team would be doing if Mike Vrabel were its head coach? Maybe 6-1. Yeah, or 6-1 at worst. I mean, and then you have the Raiders 2 wins after that, although they're starting to show they're showing signs of coming back to life. Put it this way. I could see the Raiders making a run from having only 2 wins right now to somehow sneak into that last playoff spot, in part because Josh McDaniels, to his credit, is realizing what a special talent he has in Josh Jacobs, and he's feeding him the rock. He's not, to his credit, he's not stubborn on that. Right. And then the 2-win team after that is Carolina. Oh, by the way, Carolina just upset Tampa Bay and appears to have done some addition by subtraction in getting rid of Matt Rule and even moving on from Christian McCaffrey. PJ Walker actually pretty good yesterday. But more importantly, they're refashioning themselves as a defensive-oriented team. And look, the Broncos, they're not a team that can look at the Jaguars, the Raiders at home, or Carolina on the road and say it's a Sharpie dub. Can they win those games? Yes.
Sure.
But based on the form we've seen, and now continuing to see, parts kind of fall off the machine here because of injuries, I don't know that they're going to be in a position to do that. This is starting to look, Cecil, like about a 6-11 type of team here, which, by the way, when the Broncos have started 2-5, if you look at what they've done after that and all their 2-5 seasons, all their 2-5, 1-6 seasons, their finish in terms of winning percentage would had them winning right around 6 games at the end of the season.
Okay, we'll see what happens coming up here Sunday. Jacksonville, the London thing to me. What's the Southwest commercial? Like, want to get away? Like, yeah. And Nathaniel Hackett, happy fun baby star. Want to get away? Okay, the London thing, it's kind of like everyone together. You're in a foreign country, and this is your week. So if there ever was a week, and I haven't been drinking, Mace, but if there ever was a week to like bring it all together and just, circle the wagons, to steal a line from Chris Berman, man, this is like your Waterloo. I'm trying to think of international battles, right? Like this is your last chance. This is your OK Corral. This is like, all right, Nathaniel Hackett is leading to this. And I think it's how.
You lose your Cecil?
Could get you fired if you're embarrassed by Jacksonville. And I think I went away there for a second.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, you did. But you came back. You know what the thing is, though? Like circling the wagons, restarting your season, your last shot. You know who's also feeling that way? The Jaguars. Because they're sitting there, a team that was 2-1 on a 4-game losing streak themselves. And they're looking back at their last 4 games. They're all 1-score losses. They lose by 8 to Philadelphia, a game they lead early. Looked like they had some control over it before it slipped away from them in the second quarter. They lose inexplicably to Houston by 7 at home. You can kind of file that along with like the Broncos losing inexplicably to the Colts. They go to Indianapolis and they lose by 7. They come literally 1 yard short against the Giants. So what you say about the Broncos in terms of maybe they need to get an ocean away, turn out some of the negativity, refocus, gather as a collective and find themselves. I think you can say the exact same things about the Jaguars. And the Jaguars have shown more of a spark at times than the Broncos have so far this season. Actually, the Jaguar, if you're looking kind of, you ever in baseball, there's the Pythagorean win-loss, which is based on run differential, that sort of thing. And there's also that in football as well, like the expected win-loss. The Jaguars are plus 18 in point differential this year. Their expected win-loss is 4-3. They're looking at these last few games and saying, hey, we're close. We should have gotten a couple of these as well. So I don't think the Broncos have any kind of morale advantage, motivation advantage, because the Jaguars sit in pretty much the same spot. And oh, by the way, the Jaguars have a couple of games where they have looked really good in a way the Broncos have not.
Right. And looked good against common opponents. We're at the point in the schedule where we could look back and say, like, oh, well, that's how they looked against the Chargers. How are they going to look against the Broncos? Right. Yeah, they look pretty damn good. So if you're the Broncos, it's no gimme. No gimme at all. You're the gimme, by the way, if you're the Broncos now. So get it figured out.
They are looking at this as their get well game.
Yeah.
Let's make that clear here. That because I think we get so focused around here about what the team that we cover is doing and how they see it. The Jaguars are seeing the Broncos after just playing a team that is now 6-1 and taking it and literally going down to the last play, coming 1 yard short. They are looking at the Broncos as their get-right game.
Yep. And if you watch Sunday, if Trevor Lawrence had ran the quarterback sneak correctly, he did for the touchdown, but then it was a 4th and 1, and they tried to do quarterback sneak. He didn't, like, get low. Like, learn from Tom Brady, man. Get low. Anyway.
He's smart enough to know better, is Trevor. That's the thing. Like, they're by the way, we'll get more into him as the week goes on. I mean, there are glimpses every game where you can see, okay, yeah, man, this guy could really put it together and be special. But then there are things like that, like on the sneak, like, what are you doing, dude? You are smart enough to know better than this.
Right. Shane chimes in on YouTube, says, there's no cupcakes in the NFL, John Fox. What would they be like with John Fox? I love Foxy, by the way. Those were the good days.
Oh, they would have pared back the offense, changed things philosophically. Remember, it was on John Fox's watch that they rewrote the offense for Tim Tebow to try to figure something out that might
and Mike
work.
McCoy did not want to do that at all. He did not want to do that. And Foxy said, blanket, we're running the ball. Do
your job. Yeah, your job is to maximize what this team is right now. These are the ingredients we have. How do we take this and make a meal? You saw Apollo 11, right?
Mm-hmm.
You remember the scene when they're trying to figure out how to do the filter, and they spread all the things, like all the things on a table, and they say we have to make this fit into that using only this, right? You can't go outside. You've only got your the things in front of you. And John Fox, at his heart, is a problem solver. Like remember the Wildcat offense. That was something that was first done in Carolina. John Fox and then Dan Henning was his OC at the time. Jake Delhomme had gotten hurt. They didn't trust Chris Wenke to throw the ball. And they ran a game in Wildcat with D'Angelo Williams taking a whole lot of direct snaps, and they stole a win in Atlanta. That you think Foxy would have looked at this and said, "Oh, we're going to keep doing the same thing. We're going to stay the course." No, he would have been like, "It's not working with what you have. Find something that works with the ingredients that we have right here." With Foxy as coach, Cecil, this team would be at worst 5-2.
Oh, at worst. Might be undefeated.
Might be. They would have. Maybe they lose the first game as they're kind of figuring things out, right? But they don't. I can tell you, I don't think they lose to the Raiders. I know they don't lose to the Colts, and they don't lose either of these last two games either. So 5-2, 6-1. In other words, we're talking about how great a shape this team is in, figuring things out and being right there in the thick of the AFC race, instead of looking at them being 2-5 and saying, "Oh, do they have a Hail Mary in them to go 7-3 in the rest of the schedule and sneak into the playoffs like Philadelphia did at 9-8?"
Now I just thinking of John Fox stories, Mace. I love him so much. And one of my best friends, and you probably know Russ. Hell, you've probably seen Russ in his leather jacket on the sidelines of the Shrine game. But one of my best friends is Russ Landy, who runs the Alouettes. And Russ was in Los Angeles. He's with the Rams, or St. Louis, excuse me. It was St. Louis. And he was an assistant under Dick Vermeil. Well, John Fox, for a cup of coffee, and it might have been half a season, but John Fox was there with the Rams. It's like a defensive consultant, whatever. And he told Russ one time, and they were both young. Russ was a young evaluator, and John Fox was a young coach. This was before he was head coach. And he told Russ, sitting at the lunch table one day, said, one day I'm going to be a head coach. I'm going to hire Tom Osborne. I'm going to run the blanking triple option. Doesn't that sound like Foxy, man?
Yeah, because he doesn't care how it looks. He only cares about what maximizes what he has and getting the results. That's the thing I always loved about Foxy was he was able to look at a scenario and say, all right, screw it. How do we get this right? I mean, really, there's only one season for Foxy where the bottom kind of dropped out on him, and that was Carolina in 2010. But there were a lot of things going on. You had an organization that was the uncapped but unfloored year, and it was in advance of the labor stoppage, the next offseason, the offseason lockout. And so basically, Jerry Richardson decided he wasn't, going to spend any money, and so they cut a bunch of guys, they traded a couple of others. I remember actually John Fox, when he was asked why one player got traded after practice after an OTA, he answered, quote, budget, unquote, because he wasn't mincing words. But here's the thing. Jerry Richardson wanted him to leave, but John Fox wasn't gonna leave voluntarily. Richardson wanted him to leave so he wouldn't have to pay him the last year on his contract. It was a staring match, like between two kids at the playground. Foxy wasn't going to walk out on a year's salary, and Richardson wasn't going to fire him, so they were stuck with each other. It was a very uncomfortable season, and Carolina went 2-14. But John Fox played his cards right. He knew he just had to get through that year. He'd have a job waiting for him on the other side because nobody was going to hold that season against him, and they did, and he ended up getting the Denver job. And I know John Fox, people look back, and maybe there are mixed feelings about him. I'd like to think there are more positive feelings now after what we've seen the last few years, because for damn sure, the Broncos would not be sitting here with 5 straight losing seasons, potentially a 6th, if John Fox were their head coach all this time. Period.
Preach.
Yes, they would have had at least 1 or 2 years where they figured out how to be a competent team in a way that this team hasn't, to this day. Yeah, you know what? If they move on from Nathaniel Hackett, what do you say to bringing back Foxy?
Do it.
I wouldn't be opposed.
I would love it. I would absolutely love it.
By the way, there is no coach I have covered in my career, Cecil, of whom there are more expressions that work their way into my everyday vernacular than John Fox. Well, I think I quote him at least once a day. And I think because of that, my daughter's going to grow up quoting John Foxisms as well, like, skins on the wall. And,
right.
One of my favorites that was a little bit of a double entendre was he once said of Steve Smith, "It's not the size of the wand, it's how much magic's in it."
That sounds like Steve Smith. It sounds like John Fox. And Mace, this is how bad this season's become. We're not even to the bye, and we're like, remember, we're going member berries. Remember John Fox? Like, oh, please get this 2020 season out of my memory.
But he was the best. Like when he would come over to the media in practice and just shoot the bull with us.
I remember he asked me, he's like, what the blank? I wish I could cuss like Foxy did, but he came over before practice one time. He's like, what the blank is Ant-Man? This is well before Ant-Man came out. And I was like, what? And he's like, you're a comic book guy. He's like, what the blank is Ant-Man? And I'm like, I started to explain to him Scott Lang and blah, blah, blah. And he got all bored. And I was like, why? He goes, 2 of my sons work for Marvel. And they did, I think it was Civil War. They didn't know who Robert Redford was. So Foxy had to school his sons on who Robert Redford was, because Robert Redford was in Civil War. But then his sons went to work on Ant-Man. And then Fox was like, what the hell's an Ant-Man?
Yeah. It's really cool. Like his kids kind of went as far afield from football as possible. But, because
the other one's a lawyer, right? Lawyer, and 2 movie guys. Yeah,
he's got I think, was it 3 or 4 kids? I think because I want to say they had like 2 clusters of 2, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
And he had one, and when he was here, he had one. I think his youngest was still still in high school at the time. But it's very interesting because like you look at some of these football families that exist, like where the kids go into the sport, and John Fox's kids were like they went as far away from football as they could.
Right. Well, hey, listening to Sandy yesterday on the postgame show, he did bring up Paul Hackett. He was like, Paul Hackett was a great coordinator. He wasn't a good head coach.
Yeah, I mean,
So, and that's the way some guys are, man.
Yeah.
Dick LeBeau might be the greatest defensive mind of all time,
Mhm.
and he was terrible as head coach.
Yeah, Monty Kiffin was
Dom Capers.
yeah. Dom Capers had one great season in Carolina in '96. Wade Phillips will tell you he's that. My argument on Wade Phillips is that he is a better head coach than he gives himself credit for.
Right.
I mean, he made the playoffs with the Broncos. He made the playoffs with the Buffalo Bills. He made the playoffs with the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, I don't regard Wade Phillips as a failure as a head coach based on the body of work.
Right.
But some coaches are just not meant to be head coaches. The thing is, the only way you find that out usually is by them becoming head coaches. Paul Hackett's actually a great example. And one of the things you look at with Paul Hackett is he coached SC. And what happened right after that? Pete Carroll came in there and had them contending for national championships, and maybe with a little bit of stuff that got him in trouble probation-wise. But he had them contending right away. In other words, this was pre-NIL, pre-transfer portal, so it's way back. He had them contending for national titles with players that Paul Hackett recruited. It wasn't that Paul Hackett couldn't identify talent. It wasn't that he couldn't recruit talent. He just couldn't bring it all together to succeed as a team in the way that Carroll did.
Dennis Miller always used to say, you may never be more blank than you are right now, which is, fill in the blank. You may never be more happy than you are right now. You may never be more wealthy than you are right now. And some guys, and God bless everyone it's hard out there, man, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of things out in this world that are just tough for everyone, all of us. And the ceiling for Nathaniel Hackett might be great OC. And that's okay. But you had to find out if he could be a head coach, and it's just not looking good. Mace, we are giving people some overtime. It's probably for all the days I got to cut out early to take my daughter to work. But anyway, it is orange and blue today, and we'll be here for you leading up to the game, of course, in London against Jacksonville, Monday through Friday, 3:30 p.m. Mountain Time. Make sure to join us. It's Mason Cease. It's OBT, and it's a BFD. And as always, be safe. Be kind, know that you are appreciated, and stay frosty.